So we're trying to see, like, we're looking at the tech that we use to scale zones. We think we might be able to do something there for PvP, and where we can kind of take what character you have, squish the power level so that it's not quite as big in PvP combat, but it's not, this huge change where all your stats change, and if I'm wearing all master gear, suddenly I get all crit gear.
In principle, it's kind of the same approach that lets level 108, level 105 player fight alongside each other against the same mob and has the combat work out. And the huge advantage of that is, even in the outdoor world, this would let us have a consistent rule set where it's never a situation where your template applies and all your stats change and you have different health than you're used to. We want your character to feel like your character, and for sure in an RPG that means making choices about what you're wearing and what your stats are.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Just one quick follow-up to that, too. I think one of the things we're going to have to do when we do that is look at the reward structure of PvP as well, because I think it's really hard to get stats that you want right now, given the structure that we have. So we're going to take a look at that, too.
Yeah, I think it would offer a good sense of uniqueness. People would feel like they're making their own choices on what they want, which is really cool. So we had a question that was from the audience, but they couldn't make it here, and I thought it would be a good time to ask. But what do you guys think about Titan forging in the battle for Azeroth?
I think I've been asked this question around 20 times over the course of BlizzCon already, just wandering around the floor.
little passion.
So I think we're going to make tweaks, but not a fundamental change to the system. Sorry to those of you who are not fans, but the goal of this is to have variability in rewards. It's moments of excitement. It's if you think back to raids back in the old days, if you're working, let's say, pretend you're in Tomb of Sargeras, you're working on Fallen Avatar now, your guild at this point has probably killed the first few bosses quite a number of times. Back in the day, if you were doing that farm content or that reclear to get to the boss you're on, except for maybe one item that you've been unlucky with, there really wasn't any hope for an upgrade for you on many of those nights, which also meant that collectively as a guild, your progress would stall.
All right, welcome back. If you want to continue watching the World of Warcraft live Q&A panel.
That said, a lot of the feeling of extreme spikes and randomness, obviously not great. So we may be taking a look at adjusting the odds and the ways in which the numbers of the system play out, but the core concept of the ability of an item to scale up in power, I think, is one that we want to continue with. However, this will not apply to the Azerite-infused or Azerite-attuned armor slots, so helm, shoulders, chest currently. Those already have plenty of complexity and depth to them without also adding this extra layer. So a mythic helm is a mythic helm is a mythic helm. It has those traits. Go after it. Don't worry about trying to get a Titan Forged version of the one from the last tier because it theoretically might be better. It won't be.
Very good. Let's go back to the audience.
Hi, I'm Ikael from Havoc on Uther and Wild Nox from Neverender on Thorium Brotherhood. And my question is, can character players get some sort of rooting effect for their characters to counteract pushback or knockback effects?
Oh.
So that's, obviously, you should all just race change to Goblin, then you can push Goblin Rocket Jump, and then, no. There's some weirdness with the way knockbacks work and movement effects in terms of how they interact with other movement abilities. That specific example that you give, though, it's something we've actually talked about being a cool niche for Death Knights. Death Knights in particular, the old school Pillar of Frost approach, where maybe they're not the most fast-moving one, but when everyone around them gets knocked down, everyone around them gets pushed back, they should be able to hold their ground, and that could be something that we expand upon in the Death Knight space.
Thank you. Very cool. Let's take our next question.
Hi guys, I'm Misha, or Skeletons. I'm from Oblivion's Dawn. I'm a raider on Wimmer's Accord. And I've been playing this game since I was a little kid in Russia. So what my question for you guys is, World of Warcraft is an MMORPG. So what do you guys plan doing about a character creation system that feels so archaic and lackluster in comparison to other RPGs?
So, first of all, I agree with your assessment. And, at this point, it's just a matter of, it feels like we haven't been responding to that comment. And there's a reason for that, being that we knew we were going to be doing allied races at some point. And when we took a look at the options that currently existed with, and this is just to speak to like hair and some of the existing options, we wanted to take a look at what we were going to do with allied races before we decided to add a bunch of things to the existing races. Having said that, we're at a point now where we have a good grip on that. I think we're going to take a really strong look at what we need to do to improve that system and make some change in that area.
Some more character customization, it sounds like?
Yes, absolutely.
Very awesome.
What about posture?
I like it.
Any posture-related options in the
So yeah, that's
space?
a big one, right? Like you know, we've been asked for quite a while about upright orcs and why hero orcs are different than hunched orcs. At this point, we are going to add that. So in 8.0, in Character Create, you will be able to choose between an upright orc and a hunched over orc.
Wow. Nice.
If you have an existing orc, you'll be able to go to the barber shop, and there's a toggle switch that you can toggle on or off. So you can turn into, I guess you can go see that chiropractor. And
basically barber / cosmetic surgeon / chiropractor. Multi-talented fellow.
And just as a side note to that, it opens up some exciting doors for us because we'll be able to now have shared animation on one rig. So looking forward in the future, there will be a lot more that we will be able to do with new characters coming up.
Very awesome. I like it. Let's take our next question.
Hello, my name's Colton, aka Darlassi on Sargeras. I main a disc priest, shout out the Praetian Guard. Now my question is, in the Battle of Azeroth, is Jaina actually a good guy? I mean, are we just supposed to forget the whole genocide of Dalaran?
Jaina's complicated, just like any other character. She's as evil as I am. Bad example.
How evil are you?
That's these guys. So look, if I'm Jaina, right? As a character, Jaina is racked with regret, right? Looking over her past decisions and the things that she's done, responsible for the death of her father, potentially responsible for what the Horde is today as a result of that. What could she have done differently at Stratholme? Could she have saved Arthas? What about the battle for Undercity? So if you kind of unpack all of that and break all of those things apart, it's left a character that has some damage. And then not even speaking of Theramore. So one of the things we're going to do is explore that damage, explore those decisions with Jaina, and try to understand how she got to be the way she is, and hopefully pull her out of it. So no, she's not evil. She's conflicted, and it's something we absolutely want to explore.
Wow. I can't wait for that. Let's take our next question.
Hello, I'm Druki, Guildmaster of Timeless on Executus. I'm the guy that wants ducks in the game because there's a lack of quack. Have you ever looked up in a raid and noticed how many bosses have a hole in their ceiling? Why do so many bosses have holes in their ceilings?
They do.
So that's an interesting question. I think there's multiple reasons for that. I mean, functionally, it opens up the opportunity for no camera collision. If you're, in an area that has a low ceiling, you're not going to have the camera bumping around on the ceiling. That's the functional reason. I think aesthetically, we look at, it's always nice to tie those locations into real-world locations. So you don't go into a raid or a dungeon and kind of feel like you're off in the nether somewhere and not rooted in that zone that you started in. So from an aesthetic perspective, it allows us the opportunity to kind of show the outside world while you're in that environment without having windows or things that look out to the horizon. So it really is just kind of a combination of, like, when it makes sense, we do it. It offers the ability to have different color schemes, to introduce different colors in those environments. But there's no one reason I can tell you and go, it's because they don't like ceiling fans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take our next question.
Hi there, my name is Grant, also Nimitz on Storm Rage. And my question is, with the Horde attacking Teldrassil and the Alliance attacking Lordaeron, what are your plans for the starting zones in those areas, and also just some of the other leveling zones in the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor?
Starting zones aren't going to change. Leveling in the flow of time, we'll make improvements. But in order to appreciate the burning of Teldrassil, you kind of have to understand what Teldrassil is first, right? And the way time works in our games, it flows by level. So you'll still be able to start in Shadowglen, go to Dolinar, Darnassus, Darkshore, go through all of that, and then when you hit 120, we'll burn it all down. 110. Pardon me. Same thing for Lordaeron and what happens there. You'll still make a character in Death Knell and go through all of those cool experiences and get to play as a quest giver and all that other fun stuff. And then we'll see what happens. But once you do get to that point in Battle for Azeroth where these events have occurred, the land around you will, of course, change. And potentially more, right? We've got a Warfront in Arathi that, who knows what'll happen there.
It sounds pretty immersive, actually. Keeping a good storyline going with that. I like that a lot. All right, let's go to our next question.
Hello, my name's Carrie. I'm one of the officers in the Cult of El Pollo Grande, which is Dredgen's #1 chicken cult. It's a thing. I had a question about Void Elves. So in-game, Illyria seems to be able to shift back and forth from Void Elm to High Elf form. Will playable Void Elves be stuck in Void Elf form, and why?
No. They will not. I don't want to say it's going to be a transformation like Metamorphosis. It's not quite at that level. We're tweaking that right now. They absolutely have a Void form. It's just a matter of how it's invoked. And we definitely don't want you to be fully voided the entire time because, the details are important. So we'll see.
Something possibly passive, sort of Shadow Priest,
yeah, I mean,
but just kind of on its own accord.
Well, right now, when they go into combat, they'll void out, but we may pull that back. We may make it activatable. We'll play with it in beta.
I like it. Thank you. Our next question.
Hey guys, I'm Scrib from Wormrest Accord. For the last year, I've been raid leading a guild called the Archives. Shout out to anyone who was a part of that. Lately, I've been having to keep pushing people to grind out old tier gear, old trinkets, all sorts of things to have to Titan Forge them because they're always the best. What do you guys plan on doing for this to combat that when you're moving forward into the next expansion?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. I think the first thing we look at is, how the rate that Titan Forging is happening. That's the rate that Warforging is happening. But I think really we've gotten a lot better through the patches at actually balancing items against each other. And I think that's something we continue to look at as being a very important thing. Like item level should win. And a lot of times that people are fishing for old things, it's things that might be a little out of budget, like the Arcano Crystal, I heard it. Maybe we'll stabilize it in 8.0. We're not sure yet. Could be stabilized then. But we really want to get those into a space where we can predict where they are, and then make sure that, using other systems like we have with Azerite Armor, where Azerite Armor doesn't Titan Forge, so you're not going to have to go back to get it. Hopefully that's a big burden off your shoulders when that goes live as well. So
I think, a couple of other aspects to that. I mean, part of the trinkets thing is also just the relinquished system, and so you're not necessarily going back and actually killing the old bosses. It's more just part of your reward for doing the more recent content from that large pool of items. But separately, we definitely had some issues with secondary stat balance, and that's obviously the Arcana Crystal problem, as well as a number of others. And it's hard to fix mid-expansion, given the curve that we've committed to. But in general, we'd like to do a whole lot more to make item level more consistently determinative of what's going to be worth using, and to avoid huge outliers that aren't intended like that.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we had another question from an audience member who couldn't make it, but I decided it might be a good time to ask it. So with the new Old World Zone and dungeon scaling, what are your thoughts about adding Mythic Keystone difficulties to old dungeons?
It's an interesting idea. I think time walking is something that we continue to expand. We expanded in breadth and depth. We've added new expansions, and then more recently started to add raids as another layer. Certainly for people who like the dungeon side of the gameplay, going back and doing the heroic dungeons via the random queue, not necessarily the most challenging experience, especially for those of you who are experienced pushing high-level Mythic Keystones. that could be a fun place to explore with some sort of time-walking keystone that's available during those respective weeks. It's a cool idea.
That's really cool. Let's go back to our audience.
Hi, I'm Pronk with Harvesters of Sorrow on Misha. You guys have been asked a lot of thoughtful, challenging questions, and you're about to get a break from that. My question is, once the expansion's out, how soon will we be flying?
Oh, softballs.
Yeah.
As the honorary flying responder, I think honestly about the same as Legion. I think, and we're pretty happy with how that system's played out overall. Now, the way that worked out on Argus was as much a product of the environment as anything else, rather than any overriding design philosophy we had. If Argus had just been another zone right next to the Broken Isles, flight wouldn't have been the same issue there. But exploring the world, getting to know the nooks and crannies, the mountains, the shortcuts, the details of each experience that you have in a zone, it just works out better when you're exploring it on the ground initially. But we understand that in the long run, there's a lot of convenience, especially as you get to leveling alts, especially as you've pretty much seen all the nooks and crannies a number of times. You want to be able to skip over them and skip past them. Unlocking the ability to fly is a great reward to work towards. And I think looking at the number of people who've earned flying in Legion, it wasn't something that was very hard to acquire. It's just a matter of having that experience the content one time through from the ground, and then you can soar in the skies above it. Thanks.
I have to say, I actually love really exploring the ground time, so having that time to be able to do that, thank you for doing that, holding it off for just a little bit. But
you're welcome.
So let's go to our next question.
Hi, I'm Zensu Nim, and I'm the author of the GTFO add-on. And I...
Hey!
And I'm actually a huge fan of the WoW Legion companion app, and I'm wondering what's the future look like for mobile apps moving forward?
So yeah, I think we're also huge fans of it, and being able to stay in touch with aspects of your character while you're on the go, while you're away, there's a lot of value, a lot of coolness there. It's something we want to keep building upon and enhancing in the future. We also recognize it's not necessarily the most convenient thing for people who have to bounce back and forth between that and the mobile Armory app. We'd like to work towards rolling those two into one cohesive experience as we look to the future.
Awesome. Let's take our next question.
Hello, I'm Vornath, Warlock on Zul'jin. Shout out to my brother and nephews watching at home.
Aww.
And my question is about time walking. I think it's been a great addition to the game, but as more and more time walking events have been added, and as I assume in the future more will continue to come, it's been getting longer and longer for the specific time walking event you want to come around. So I'm wondering if there's any chance of any kind of consolidation to maybe we'll just get one time walking event which they'll all be active or something along those lines.
Interesting.
But I think some consolidation, I don't know that we would go to all at once. I think there is some value to looking forward to when Wrath's going to come around again or when Kata's going to come around again. Those dungeons are, they're a nice experience, they're a nice change of pace from what's there in the modern game, but not necessarily ones that you want to be running all the time. As we continue to expand time walking, most of that expanding really is added depth to the existing holidays. We'll probably add Warlord's time walking at some point during Battle for Azeroth. That seems like a safe bet. But beyond that, it's more of some of the stuff that was touched on in earlier questions. What other types of activities can happen during a given time walking week? Are there ways that we could bring the outdoor world into this as well? So it's not just about an instanced experience. That could be another cool space to explore.
Thank you.
Very cool. Next question.
Hi, my name is Joey Giggles. I am a healing monk, we're very rare, on Alliance Manaroth. So with allied races being added, I gotta say the Zandalari trolls look amazing. And I am really close to think about switching to Horde.
For the Horde?
With that being said, Fraction Pride is it's an ongoing struggle, and so is faction balance. So how do you keep Alliance playing Alliance and Horde playing Horde so that doesn't become more of an issue?
I mean, it sounds like you might want to look within yourself. And if you're looking at that Zandalari troll and there's something there that speaks to you, maybe that's your answer. At the end of the day, right, that's a choice everybody has to make. And play the game the way you want to play it. I think in terms of faction balance on servers, across the game as a whole, you know, we've made a lot of improvements over the years, whether it's cross-realm auction houses as more of a default, or improved matchmaking across servers so that you can find people to play with regardless, to help address things on those levels. But play what you want to play.
I like that. I think the other thing I want to add to that is in one of your previous panels, you were talking about the PvP toggling, and I feel like that's going to give a lot of faction pride because you can be with your group doing that.
Exactly.
Very cool. All right, our next question.
Hi, I'm Dimination from Revive on Stormreaver. My question is, what are your plans for legendaries come Battle for Azeroth?
So we you know, we have Azerite armor, and Azerite armor in a lot of ways already kind of does what legendaries did in Legion. So we're not looking forward. We're not actually taking that system forward into 8.0. I don't know about the future past that, but I think you see a lot of the, like, we looked at the legendaries that, you know, the people like and the choices that they were able to make, and kind of wrap that into what was cool about Azerite armor, and took kind of lessons from artifacts. We took lessons from legendaries, so they don't really seem necessary in their current form in 8.0.
Thank you.
Yep.
I like that. Our next question.
Hi, I'm Nairo from Drengen Horde. Shout out to my guild. You can't fix stupid. So what's going on with the quest log size limit? Can we increase it a lot?
A lot. Please? Just moderately increase it.
In the realm of things we talk about all the time, I think this comes up quite a bit too. The hard part is, I think there's a lot of things to look at with the quest log size. I think we have a lot of quests that are ending up in your log right now that probably don't need to be there. Maybe they can be somewhere else. Maybe they don't need to live there for so long. Like, I think you kind of end up accumulating, like, I was looking at my log recently. I had about 20 quests, and most of them I don't remember picking up because they were, you know, getting mission rewards, or I was flying through areas and getting quests pushed to me. So I think we're going to attack that first. When you have 25 quests in your log, it's really hard to keep track of all of them. If we added up to 35 or 50 or whatever you guys are asking for, I think it would still be overwhelming, and you'd end up being like, okay, well, I still have now 50, and now I have to go through and figure out what things I don't want to do. We'd rather you didn't have to choose between quests that you want to do and quests that you don't want to do, and try to attack that first.
I like it. Right. All right.
Okay.
It wasn't until we had all the characters ready for us that we began to discover who they were. We start by doing pose tests to figure out where the characters look appealing and where they look unappealing.
Backpack. When will hoarders have more space?
Please.
Huh?
Members of the Alliance and the Horde, we hear you.
No, I believe it's the Q&A, but like
we
it's like
are very close to
I feel like it's almost like a
allowing
presentation.
you to slightly increase your backpack size. One of the things that we want to do is we want to incentivize
Let's ask her.
you to use the authenticator. And so at some future patch, if you have an authenticator attached to your account, your backpack size will increase.
What? That is great. Thank you, guys. All right, our next question.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I raid with my guild Easy Play on UCRU. And as we're raiding, and with the faction conflict taking center stage,
oh my God,
I was wondering if we can even see different raid bosses for the factions, or are we going to see different stories or different reasons why we're in raids?
This is too good.
Definitely different stories, different reasons for a lot of these places.
Oh my God, this is a Q&A. What the fuck? What did you stream?
Going into, you know, a Tal'Dazar or a place in Nazmir
know,
as
but
a
what did
Horde
I
player
watch
will be quite
before?
different from what you're hoping to accomplish in terms of the wrapping and the context for
something
it as an
earlier
Alliance
today?
player. The bosses are the bosses, the place is the place, but different reasons to do the same things. Now, looking further ahead, we talked a bit about some of the raids that we have planned, and those are again tied to the storylines of these new subcontinents. But there's no reason at all why faction conflict, true faction conflict,
but like I
can't
like the
play
guy on
out
stage
in a raid setting or a dungeon setting.
So
If I'm Alliance and the Horde is the enemy, then shouldn't I be raiding the Horde? And shouldn't a raid boss be a member of the Horde? It's a cool place to explore.
We should burn down Stormwind. I agree.
Thank you.
I really liked even going back to Wrath at the Trial of the Crusader, where we had a very similar kind of PvP-esque boss instance. And so to see something like that, maybe would be pretty cool again.
Yeah. Bring back the faction champions.
Oh, it's Vegeta's girlfriend, dude.
All right, our next question.
All right, I'm Clevis from Onslaught, and my question is regarding World of Warcraft Classic. And I'm wondering, do you plan to fix the bugs, exploits, and other issues that we may or may not remember from Vanilla WoW? Or do you have a philosophy at this point of warts and all to get that authentic experience?
That's a really good question, and it's a complicated one. So, I think part of the reason, one of the things we talked about in the announcement was that this is going to take a little bit longer than maybe you might imagine. And part of that is to engage with you guys, the community, to talk about some of these concerns and talk about some of these issues. I think our philosophy is, to have a compass heading that is to recreate the level 1 through 60 experience as you remember it. I think there were bugs and exploits that led to crashes and led to service downtime. Obviously, we don't want that to be part of the experience. But there are going to be some questions that are going to be really interesting that we're going to have to answer in terms of how things worked at certain points during the 2 years that the original 1 through 60 experience existed. And there's all kinds of things that come to mind, but the one I'll bring up is Ubers, right? Like Ubers for a lot of the time was both a 10-player instance and a 5-player instance. And then as we get close to releasing Burning Crusade, we got rid of the 10-player instance. What's the right version of Classic? That's something that we have to talk about, for sure.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Let's go to our next question.
Hi, Pyro from Crescendo on Area 52. My question is, the allied races look amazing, and their heritage armor looks amazing. If I unlock the heritage armor on a Nightborn, can I then transmog it on my Blood Elf?
Nope. Yeah, sorry.
Kidding.
No.
Next question.
Yeah.
No, it's the heritage armor is the unique expression, is the essence of that allied race's identity, and it's for them and them alone.
They can't just share closets or something? Nothing?
Sorry. Doesn't work that way.
Looks like we're going to be leveling a few, huh?
Thank you.
All right, our next question.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you for all you guys do. Jay, you think we do, and we do. The question is regarding all the new social things that you guys are implementing. When are we going to see an increase to our friends limit? Because I've had 200 friends for like the last 10 years.
Okay, that's not true, because the limit used to be 100.
I have a list that I have to keep adding and taking people off.
Yeah, so I agree, and especially as we've continued to increase the amount of social systems and the amount of different games that are available for you, the amount of friends that we need to support also needs to increase greatly, and so I can't talk about. So one of the challenges with this is every game has to do some work in order to kind of do this simultaneously. There's work on the BattleNet side. There's work on each individual game in order to kind of do this. So it's a more complicated thing than you might imagine, but it absolutely is something that we need to do and make significantly larger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Our next question.
Hi there, my name is Reckles with One to Buy Gold, and I have a question about gold making. So I'm really nervous about item scaling, and try to do an example so I'm clear. If I'm trying to farm like a level 63 shoulder, I need to go out and kill a level 63 enemy in Outlands. If I can get it from a 64, but the drop rate cuts in half. Well, now y'all are saying that these zones are going to go all the way to 80. How is the loot drop rate system changing? What are y'all doing? How is it going to affect us going forward?
He's a transmog collector for sure.
Yeah,
he's a gold collector.
I just sell them.
Yeah, so we talk about classic and how hard it is to go back to that. Like scaling zones is kind of going back through 12 years of history and trying to figure out how all of this works in that system. Specifically with this, our philosophy is basically if the thing dropped it before, it's going to keep dropping it. So things that, like gold will scale. It makes sense for gold to scale. If I'm doing a zone at 60, I should get the same amount of gold out of it. But if it's dropped, let's say it drops silk, it should still drop silk when we do our changes. That may not be 100% true based off of just some weird things that we might run into, but that's our philosophy that we're going with.
All right. Next question.
Thank you.
I'm Zakul from Storm Rage. Shout out to Zeros to Heroes, third shift, best shift. My question was on the war fronts and specifically on their length. I was wondering if they're going to be a longer experience, kind of like a raid. Are they something you can just jump into and do? Are our raid leaders going to yell at us if we're in one 30 minutes before raid? I was just wondering if you could elaborate on how long they're going to be and how you came to their length.
So some of that is really TBD at this point. Like we have, we think they're going to be a little bit longer than dungeons, but how far past that is still up in the air. Because I mean, there's a lot of pacing that goes along with it. You're building buildings, right? You're training troops. You want those troops to matter for at least a little bit of time. So it's still something that we're trying to dial in, and through our playtest, I think we'll find something. And I'm sure it's something that when you guys get it in beta, we'll get a lot of feedback and be able to adjust off of that too.
Okay, thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So it looks like we have gone through a lot of audience questions so far, and we haven't even touched our online questions.
Oh, wow.
So I think we need to take a couple, if we can, from online. And our first question was, what classes will be available to each allied race, and will they differ from current races? Why or why not?
So there's an interesting aspect of that question. So these are allied races. These aren't sub-races. There's no direct associated race or parent race or anything like that. So when we are approaching what a new allied race should be able to play, we're looking at the identity and the culture of that race and what makes sense, the same way we would with any new race we're adding to the game. We're going to go through that process. Where possible, err on the side of letting you play as much as possible, because we want those options. If you love a class and you love a race, we want to try to make it happen if it makes sense. Something like a Void Elf Paladin, not quite. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's sort of the logic and how we're approaching it. I believe the race class matrices for Void Elves, Lightforged, High Mountain, and Nightborn are up on the website right now for Battle for Azeroth, and we'll have more information to share on others in the future.
All right. And back to that, we actually had another viewer want a little bit of an explanation between how the Void Elves are Alliance and the Nightborn are Horde, and how is it not the other way around, or what's going on with that?
You're going to have to play the Battle for Azeroth to find out, because all the allied races have their own introductory quests, and we really want to make sure that you have context as players as to that exact question. Hey, why did the Nightborn go to the Horde and not the Alliance? Why did the Void Elves go to the Alliance and not the... We'll explain all of that, and that will be made very clear, and that will give you that sense of alliance, allegiance.
All right. Another viewer would like to know, will the Legion threat end before the Battle of Azeroth, for Azeroth, and what does that mean for the purpose of the Demon Hunter class?
Oh.
They just turn into hunters?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's pretty much
just regular hunters?
Hunters, nothing without
Take
the
up
hunt?
a bow and arrow and call it good?
It's a serious question, though, right? Look, their main purpose has been thwarted, right? The reason they exist. But not really. I mean, ultimately, Demon Hunters are Blood Elves and Night Elves. And they're doing what they do for the same reason Illidan was, right? Which is to protect the world that he loves. And the threat to that world hasn't stopped. If anything, it's getting crazier in the post-Legion world, where we've got a world that's damaged and potentially dying. So their charge is not over. They will continue to be demon hunters, and I would argue that one day we'll probably see demons again. So we'll need them.
All right. Another viewer would like to know, are the continents of Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdom completely split between the factions? And what does that mean for places like Silvermoon City and Exodar still?
Well, Silvermoon and Exodar are still Alliance and Horde, respectively. It's those zone boundaries are very tricky for NPCs to cross. So they can't. They don't even know. No, we will have a fictional. We will have fiction in place. Obviously, those two kind of become the last bastions of their factions, and maybe a way in for those factions as well. And we'll be sure to use them in this battle.
Very cool. And our next viewer would like to know, when are we going to see updated Worgen and Goblin character models?
Oh.
Please.
So apparently that's something that people want, I guess.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
So actually, Ian and I have been trolling each other all weekend, saying opposite things for some odd reason. So just to clear things up, not for 8.0, but we are actually currently working on them. And no disrespect meant to either of those races for the delay it's taken us to get to that. I play a Goblin. We love those guys. I feel like the Goblin, and I think collectively we feel like the Goblin as a race are looking really good and really cool, both the male and female. They just need that visual update and more animation so they feel like they're in line with the current fidelity of the rest of the races. So Worgen, on the other hand, very happy with the male Worgen. I understand there's also a lot of unhappiness with the female Worgen, so as part of that process, we would like to offer more facial features for them so they feel a little bit softer or more wolf-like and less chihuahua-like.
They're just sassy. All right. Our next viewer would like to know, in the future, when we opt in for World PvP, what will be the draw for that, and how do you figure out the reward level to incentivize that?
That's going to be a challenging process, but it's an important one. So as mentioned at the panel, the idea is to offer some increased efficiency to offset the natural inefficiency that comes from questing in a PvP environment. Even if you're the one doing the ganking and you're winning all your fights, that's still slowing you down compared to somebody who is just questing with no distractions. And we don't want people who love PvP to feel like they're hamstringing themselves playing the way they enjoy. And so the point of these bonuses will be to offset that inefficiency. Obviously, if we go too far, the risk would be pressuring players who don't like PvP and don't feel comfortable doing it into a play style they don't enjoy because it seems so lucrative. So those are the philosophies that are guiding us. Finding those exact values is going to be a process of reflection and tuning and feedback and hearing from all of you.
And when you're switching yourself to PvP, you do it in a major city. It doesn't happen in like a zone town, in a...
Yes, that's essential, right? So you'd have to be in a major capital like Stormwind or Orgrimmar or Dalaran, and you're making a choice that's not an easy to switch one. When you go out into the world, you're committing to that. It's not a thing to just bounce back and forth as the mood strikes you.
Right, and then you're phased. You don't see any of the PvE people out there. You don't see anything like that?
Exactly. Effectively, you are on a PvP server when you set out into the world, and if you make the other choice, you're on a PvE server when you set out into the world with most of the familiar rule sets. But again, that's a foundation that we can build upon to create all new content and really improve world PvP significantly.
Great, I like it. All right, our next viewer online would like to know, can we please have more character slots per realm?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I think...
we did it!
Thanks. So I think along with allied races, with Battle for Azeroth, we'll be giving you 6 additional ones because there's 6 allied races to unlock. And if you have your characters maxed out in a given server, we don't want you to have to feel like you need to delete a character in order to create the race that you've just unlocked. So similar to when we added the Demon Hunter, we gave a character slot. Similar story here.
Very cool. All right, our next... I'm excited for that, actually. But our next question is the unlockable heritage armor only going to... Oh, I think we kind of answered this, but So it's only going to be usable on the respective allied race, correct? You can't use it on any other class or anything like that. It's not account-wide.
That is correct. And part of the reason for that, aside from just to, I guess, another follow-up, aside from how important it is for that race's heritage, just gameplay-wise, we wouldn't want you to feel like if you want to collect cool transmogs that you need to make a race that you have no interest in playing, level it all the way to max level, and then throw it away just to get this one look. You should play it because you want to play it because you think the race is cool.
Very good. All right, and then our next viewer would like to know, with your renewed focus on the cross-server communities, will we be able to trade flasks with our friends on other realms or consumables, things like that?
This is, yeah, something else we're looking into. We need to figure out a way to do it so that it doesn't also cause weird economy issues between servers, and I think that's the challenge that we've been going with. But we all have, I think with cross-realm raiding being such a success, and I think you end up with, you know, 1 or 2 people in your, or maybe your entire raid is from different servers, it gets weird that you can't trade those things. We do also do things like we have, you know, feasts which work cross-server, we have cauldrons that work cross-server, so that might be another way to do it. But I honestly, like, we'd love to find a way that you could trade those kinds of commodities without ruining economies that are different across each server.
Yeah. All right, and I think we have time for one more question. This one's pretty important. How or when do we sign up for the beta?
There's actually a web page that we put up that has all of the features for Battle for Azeroth. It's got details, and Ian mentioned the different classes that are available for for 4 of the different allied races. That's actually up right down at the very top. It has a place for you to watch the cinematic and watch the intro features, and also sign up for the beta and get updates on when public testing begins.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Well, that's going to wrap up this year's Battle for Azeroth Q&A panel. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and giving us a lot of this valuable insight.
Thank you all for the great questions.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for having me as moderator. But more importantly, thank you guys. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching on the virtual ticket. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you for attending World of Warcraft Live Q&A. Up next, the Inside the Overwatch League panel.
That was useless.
Microphone activated.
So that was useless.